October 11th, day 2 of the NHL season, and not quite the start we were looking for. 0-2 on our best bets given out yesterday. So we'll recap some of those. We'll get into the games, what went down, what went wrong, and then we'll get into games for tonight, as well as our best bets as well. If you have any questions in the chat here, please make sure to send them. We'll try to get to those throughout the show here today. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind people that this show is presented by BetStamp. BetStamp is the best way to shop for odds as a sports bettor. You are always trying to get the best odds, whether it be for games, futures, or player props. You're always trying to line shop to save time and money, and BetStamp is the app to do it. So make sure to sign up at BetStamp today. And if you are trying to help support the show, or you see a sports book up here today that you don't have that you need to sign up for because you're going to sit there and say, I want to make that bet as well, but I don't have access to those odds, make sure to use the link in the description to sign up for any of those sports books. BetStamp.app/Edgework. It does help support us here on the Edgework Show. Boys, I mean, tough start to the season there yesterday, 0-2. But before we get into that here, Matt, welcome to the show. First time on Edgework Live. How you feeling?
Thanks, Zach. Good. Would have been a little bit better if I didn't have to watch that Seattle game last night, but nonetheless, can always bounce back.
Yeah, fair enough. And Moretto, I mean, we do go 0-2. I think maybe a tough one there, but you do get the Habs playing today. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what are people going to expect from us now? Like 0-2, it can only go up. So exactly. I think we're fine. But let's get into the games last night. Moretto, I'll start with you on the Nashville game. You're high on them. You're high on them for the season. Any thoughts yesterday? Any thought process changing on the Predators based on what you saw, based on the results of the game? Anything like that?
No, I think they played like dog shit in the first period and still were very much in that game late against a very good and underrated Tampa team, which, I talked about yesterday too, how I'm pretty high on Tampa. Yeah, I mean, all in all, like, you got to be kind of happy with what you saw from the Predators if you're someone like me who is, staking borderline their reputation on the Predators being good this year. I thought that getting Parson involved in the scoring, getting Novak involved in the scoring, having these guys produce offense early on, like, you want to see these young guys contributing and not like, I mean, you want to see them do it over a full season as opposed to like where last year they kind of did it late in the year. They came up. It's harder to do it, over a full year than it is in like a small sample size towards the end of last season. So to see them get involved early, obviously good for their confidence. Good to see that, maybe this is like not just a flash in the pan, and to do it against, a well-structured team. Like if they could stay out of the box in the third period, I think maybe this game ends, with the Predators win, but obviously they couldn't stay out of the box. Tampa's power play and, Nick Paul, what a trade that was for the Senators. Yeah, I mean, that's just how it works out. Sometimes you don't get the bounces, and we'll shake it off, and we'll find a winner at one point this week, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Tampa goes, do you feel a little bit like reassured and kind of where we were at yesterday coming out of the show, thinking like, hey, this Tampa team might be a little bit undervalued. This might be a team that is actually much better than people are kind of anticipating them to be. And then if they stay above water while Vasilevsky's out, they're in a good spot. Or did you see any holes? Like, what was your kind of thoughts on Tampa?
My thought was that if Vasilevsky doesn't hurry up and come back, Jonas Johansson's going to take over the starting job no matter what. I mean, geez, this guy's he's like found the fountain of youth. I don't know what he found, but he could play goalie again all of a sudden. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling very confident in Tampa being a good team. Obviously, it's one game, so like I'm not going to base anything off of that. But it definitely didn't see anything that, would change my mind. I think this is like a deep hockey team. They're going to get a lot of goals from a lot of different people. And obviously their top guys are still going to be firing. And I think Tampa will be just fine. I couldn't believe how many people I saw tweeting out their predictions yesterday. Obviously first day of the season, everyone's going to tweet out their predictions, but how many prominent people had Tampa missing the playoffs? It's like everyone has just completely given up on this team because Vasilevsky's out for a month and a half, 2 months. I don't know. It's wild to me. I think now this is like a hot takey, but I think Vasilevsky could miss the whole season and they would still be a wild card team.
I don't know if it's that hot myself. I don't know, Matt. You think it's a hot take?
I don't know. It's a little extreme. So I know in the past, Jonas Johansson's been, for the most part, a terrible goalie. I tweeted about it numerous times. I was talking to you guys in the chat last night. One of my favorite things for years is anytime you see him, play the over right away, no matter what. because Tampa's so used to having Vasilevsky out there that they can play a more aggressive offensive style and not needing to necessarily worry about giving up a few chances. He was actually relatively good in limited time last year. And obviously last night, like he looked okay. I mean, that goal by Novak he wasn't going to stop that. So I don't know. I think it is hard what to make of him this year. I do think it's going to be better than some of the past years you've seen where he's going to let in every third shot. But at the same time, like, I don't think he's going to be like a starting level goalie or anything. But I do think there is like a relatively good chance that he's like a stable backup until Vasilevsky comes back. And I do think Tampa's probably going to change their style of play a little bit to maybe help guard him a little bit more, as opposed to just, hey, go out and just try to score as many goals as possible.
Yeah, it's like when you're playing minor hockey and they have to put a goalie in net who's never played before because your goalie can't come, and then your game plan turns into don't let anyone shoot on this guy kind of thing, limit all opportunities. But before we move off this game, final question I want to ask, I'll pose it to both of you guys here, so whoever's got thoughts on this, but clock stop gate, do you guys catch that? The clock stopping for about a second or so? Do you have any thoughts on that? What happened there?
Alex, I'll let you go first.
I honestly didn't even notice it. I'm so like non-observant that I didn't notice it until Matt mentioned something in our chat. I just had given up at that point. I saw Kucherov skating up the ice. I was like, all right, well, this is done.
Yeah.
I did not time it out. I have not seen if someone timed it out. I'm not into like conspiracy theories. Oh, the clock operator had the puck line, any of that kind of stuff. But it looks very clear. Like the clock stopped at 1.2.
Yeah.
It took about a second and a half to get the puck in. I don't know. If I had Nashville plus 1.5, I'd be a little bit more upset.
Yeah.
Hey,
I hope he did have the puck line, and I hope he cashed big on it. I'll say that.
Yeah, good for him.
All the power to him.
But no, I instantly saw that on Twitter. Some prop guys and stuff were tweeting about it, and it was definitely noticed.
Yeah, I feel like it might have just been one of those things where it was the actual broadcast clock and not necessarily the in-arena clock that was doing the pause, but it did definitely pause. I did notice that. So moving on, another game that took place last night, the debut of Connor Bedard, the second coming. Obviously, Chicago rolling in there, not a very good team. We were messaging back and forth in regards to the roster that they were putting out there. Moretto put out a tweet. If you haven't seen it, go check that out. It was pretty funny, but it was just about, this looks like a team that's already tanking like late in the season, like the guys that they're rostering, and it's bang on. It's like Matt sending messages about like, I can't believe we have Jared Tenorti on the ice. And I'm sitting there going, I can't even believe that guy's still wearing skates, let alone playing in the NHL right now. And yet they find a way to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Penguins home opener. We kind of discussed yesterday on the show that the Penguins were probably going to be, in our opinion, at least, Moretto, a little bit fraudulent. You kind of stand with that take of where we were at yesterday. Obviously, one game, so you can't really like, yes, this is what it is. But based on what you saw yesterday, do you feel reassured in your Penguins take?
Yeah, one game, but like it's one game against pretty much one of the worst teams in the NHL, and they by all means looked terrible. I mean, the Karlsson thing might blow up in their face. I thought that when they traded for him, like Karlsson needs a very specific situation to succeed in. I mean, the way I look at it, like Karlsson kind of plays hockey like guys play beer league, where like, you have like that really good guy who's like incredibly talented that like, at beer league who like just like is a donkey on the ice though and just needs to like do his own thing and like basically just like go end to end half the time. That's kind of what he is. He will not flourish in a system. If you want him to play within your system, it's not going to happen. They need to be like fluid and flexible and give him that freedom when he's on the ice. I'm sure they're willing to do that, but like how often can you continuously adapt based on who's out there? It's just a tough situation. Last year, he could basically just do whatever he wanted on San Jose. And, he had free reign because that team was awful and nothing mattered. He's not going to have that this year. And like, this is a very different situation he's going to be in. Obviously, he's going to get the power play time, but he's not going to be like the guy on the power play. They have a lot of options out there, with Gensel, Letang, Crosby, obviously Malkin. So, yeah, I mean, I think that this is a deal that can kind of blow up in their face. They don't have the depth. And like, obviously, the age of this team, injuries haven't even hit them yet. And that's going to come at one point because I don't think many of these guys are suited to play 82 games anymore. So I think it could be a long season for them. Again, one game, you're not going to overreact, but like yeah, I'm sitting here with a lot of pens under stuff, and I feel decent, about it right now.
And yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So I tend to think I'm a little bit higher on Pittsburgh this year. I will say the trade as a whole, I think I was in the minority that actually thought San Jose did pretty well, saying about a year ago, like, you wouldn't have been able to attach a pick to Carlson to get rid of his contract. And for the fact they were able to get a first, like, with what they're trying to do, it is what it is.
Dubas trades first like they're candy, though. Dubas doesn't value them because he can't draft, so it doesn't matter. But anyways.
I know you're a big Dubas guy. I think eventually they'll get it figured out. I think it was relatively clear last night that it's an entirely new situation for him, like you said. And he's kind of used to being the guy. And now even on that power play, like, it's not going right through him, nor should it. So I think it is going to take some time. But at the same time, like, I think he's still too good of a player for it to just like totally blow up in their face. And it's obviously going to be an upgrade over what they had last year. I know I'm a bigger fan of kind of some of their other offseason moves, like getting Mikael Granlund out of there. And just kind of their depth looks a little bit better than it did at this point last year, and especially near the end of last year. So I do think they have the potential to be better than they were last year, but obviously like blowing that lead to a terrible Blackhawks team where I realized Ryan Donato was on their first line.
Yeah.
And then it dropped off really quick. And then it dropped off really quick. Like, yeah, Jared Sonority, who like couldn't crack a Rangers roster 2 years ago over like Lieber Hayek and Patrick Nemeth. And all of a sudden he's on, I think, the second deep pair in Chicago.
Former Habs first round pick.
It's going to be a long year for Chicago, but no, they look good after that initial start. But back to Bedard, like, and I know you tweeted something about it. Like, the skill's definitely there. Like, he's obviously going to be a stud. He needs to get stronger. He was just getting knocked off pucks left and right. But he clearly has all the rest of the tools, and it was definitely a good first game for him.
Yeah, like, he's explosive. He's so fast, and he's like dynamic, and he can change the game with one, rush up the ice. But like, obviously the shot will be there. You could tell there were definitely some jitters with the first power play of the game. They paid a lot of attention to him. He had a couple like decent looks, but yeah, there were some jitters there. But he was getting pushed off pucks really easily. And obviously, like, he's 18, he's a kid still, right? He's playing against grown men. Like, that'll come with age. But like, Crosby didn't have that issue. Like, Crosby was built like a horse when he came into the league. Bedard will get there. Obviously, he's going to be fantastic. It's just something that I noticed I didn't necessarily expect to really matter. I thought,
McDavid wasn't really like physically outmatched when he got in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I thought, it's just the way he plays, like, it'll be fine. But obviously, there's going to be some growing pains, and maybe that does mean that the Calder race is back open, or maybe it's also just one game and like it doesn't matter, and there were just some jitters, and he'll be perfectly fine. I think he'll still, have a 60-point season or whatever coming, but just something that was, I thought, bared mentioning.
Yeah, and the other thing that you mentioned in there about them paying a lot of attention to him on the power play, like, that's something that's not going to go away due to how bad the roster is, right? Like, they don't need to pay. They need to pay attention to like him and Taylor Hall and Seth Jones, I guess, but like, that's it.
Well, like, even Seth Jones, they were like, you can kind of do your own thing. They would kind of just leave him be, go around and operate on his own. It was right on Bedard the second anybody even looked at him, and then Taylor Hall, you just kind of pick off down low, and that was it. Like you're saying, like, that was how you just kind of shut them down, and that's going to happen all year.
I see in the chat too from Mike Romberg here. I completely agree. It honestly was very reminiscent of Jack Hughes, because Jack Hughes looked awful early on in his career. Obviously he's an incredible player, but like, he looked just like frail and just like he was not ready to play against men in the NHL. And I think that's why he took a while to kind of get up to speed. Now, obviously, you figure the game out, and like, so Bedard will be just fine. But yeah, it was very reminiscent of Jack Hughes.
Yeah, but like, so on that first power play, like, I forget who the Penguins penalty killer was. I think it was Lafferty. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you could tell just looking at it, like, they were not going to let Bedard shoot the puck from that half wall. Like, they were going to let Jones shoot from up top. They were going to let him go the other way, kind of give whatever you wanted. Like, and I think that's something that a lot of teams are going to copy when they play Chicago, knowing he's the guy that's going to hurt you with the shot. Like, take the shots from the point all day. Just, you can't let him have it over there.
And then big baby Donato is going to clean up with 40 goals.
Sure.
Yeah. Also, I believe it was Brian Rust.
Lafferty's
Lafferty's in Vancouver. Leaf Legends have traded to Vancouver. So Yeah. But yeah, there you go.
Can't even keep track of Varys anymore.
Dubas should make a trade and get Mrazek. That's the move that needs to be made. It actually
Dude,
just go
out of his
find
mind.
out find out whatever goalies out there currently playing have played for the Sioux Greyhounds.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's the next.
Boris Kachuk and Taylor Radish both played for the Sioux. I found that out last night on the Blackhawks. I thought maybe they were going to leave on the Penguins team flight.
Yeah. All right. Final game of the night last night. Matt, we'll go to you here. Seeing as your title there says you hate Seattle, talk us through what happened in the Kraken game last night.
Real quick, just to correct myself, it was Noah Lachari on the penalty kill,
Okay.
not Sam Lafferty, because
Another Leafs legend.
We'll get to the Leafs in a bit. The Kraken power play stinks. That's about the best way to describe that game, and it obviously would have helped if Brandon Tanev didn't pretty much put a puck in his own net. Mm-hmm. At 5-on-5, I thought the Kraken looked good, and it just kind of builds off like last year. They were one of the top 5-on-5 teams in the league, and like the first part of that game, they really controlled. Obviously, they kind of had the early power play, got nothing out of it, but again, they looked really good early on, and then obviously Vegas kind of got that nice tic-tac-toe goal. I think finished by Stevenson, and then it just kind of went downhill after that. But the Kraken had a lot of chances. Obviously, in the third period, like they had the major power play that resulted in Eberle missing an empty net that I still don't know how was missed. But outside of that, just not generating a whole lot else. I don't know. It was frustrating as somebody on the Kraken, but what can you do? They actually played pretty well, I thought, though.
Did we deserve better? I didn't watch the game. I was asleep. I'm an old man now. I go to bed early, but I missed it completely.
Yeah, empty netter at the end, 4-1. It felt like it probably should have been a 1-goal game late.
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, Aiden Hill was spectacular.
Where did this come from? It actually makes no sense. Like I can't. Aiden Hill was like a fade when he was with the Sharks and the Coyotes. It was like an easy bet against Aiden Hill in the Aiden Hill games.
I know. We were talking about this last night, but like I don't know how he went from. I think this is his 7th year, if I'm correct. But like the first 5 years, he was below replacement level, and all of a sudden he just like has this playoff, and now he's like the best goalie in the world. And Zach joked last night, like I don't know how he made $4.9 million. I'm like, he plays like this, he's worth $49 million.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's like watching that game last night. Seattle was. There were stretches where it's like this should have been Seattle tied game or Seattle within 1 here, and it just doesn't happen. And then even like that stretch where you're talking about where Vegas goes down and has the tic-tac-toe, it's like it kind of had followed up a series of Seattle being down and creating a ton of opportunities. Not necessarily that they had crazy Aiden Hill saves in that span, but like there was a lot of opportunities. They could have easily scored. And next thing you know, Vegas is down the other end, tic-tac-toe, and it's a different game. And it's just like sitting there being like, if this team could have just buried on a couple of these, capitalize on power play, it's a different game. Now, mind you, when you say like, did we deserve better? It's not like Vegas played a bad game. Like Vegas deserved to win that game. They did what they did. They outplayed them. They won. I don't know. It's like sometimes it just gets dumbed down to that, but it's kind of what happened with us last night. It's just unfortunate.
Blame everything on variance.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the games here today. We do have a slate of 6 ahead of us, so we'll go through some of these. We'll give out best bets. If anybody in the chat has any questions, please make sure to ask them there. We will try to get to them throughout the course of the show, whether it be for sides, totals, player props, but we'll give a brief rundown of the game. If we have bets, we'll give them out. If we don't have bets, we'll just kind of talk about the game. Sides we're looking towards, maybe numbers that we would have needed, why we're not interested in those, and then move on. So make sure to send your questions in the chat as well. If you're watching right now, please make sure to hit that like button. About 25% of the people watching right now have hit like. That's just not enough. I mean, a quarter of you have hit like. Make sure to hit that like button while you're watching. Subscribe to the channel as well while you're at it. But let's start first and foremost with the Ottawa Senators game on the road at the Carolina Hurricanes. Just currently looking at the total right now, I'm seeing 6.5 on Pinnacle, and we see the money line currently minus 180 for the Hurricanes, plus 161 for the Ottawa Senators. Moretto, Any thoughts on this game at all? I mean, I know we're not necessarily looking at some plays in this one, but just maybe prices of what you would have needed. Why is it kind of out of range? Just where are you at with this Carolina Senators game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it is like a Carolina team that I'm very high on coming into the year. I have some like President's Trophy stuff on them, and a Sens team that I don't think is as good as the market thinks they are, or at least as people think they are. It seems to be a popular like surprise playoff pick. I'm not quite there yet. I think there's going to be growing pains with that young decor. I don't think the depth is actually where it should be. Obviously, no Shane Pinto, no Norris right now. Pinto without the contract, Norris injured. Like I can't really make much of a case to be betting Ottawa here, but I don't like the price on Carolina. This is just like I could maybe be talked into an under just because of the fact that. But I mean, again, every time you bet an under on Carolina, they score like 6 goals. Every time you bet Carolina, they get 1 goal on 55 shots. So I mean, I just want nothing to do with this game. This is just a stay away. It'll be a good barometer to kind of see where Ottawa's at right now and see what this new Carolina team is with their new additions.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. I have no play on this. I think this is an Ottawa team that I liked backing them last year, especially when they were kind of on the larger dog side. They're a very high variance team, obviously, with kind of their top end skill, but their depth very questionable. Last year, obviously, goaltending big issue. This year should be a little bit better. I agree. Norris Pinto being out kind of keeps me away from wanting anything on Ottawa, but I don't want to lay this number with Carolina here. I do think this is an Ottawa team that I'll look to play a good amount of overs with during the year. But again, Carolina, like this game screams like 4-1 Kings. And I just don't necessarily want any part of getting in front of that.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about the depth of this Senators team. You go from Norris and Pinto to Ridley Gregg and Rourke Chartier, like down the middle. Like this is a drastic swing in where they were at depth wise going into the season, or what they're expecting to have at least. Anything that you guys might be looking for in player props or anything like that in this game? I see Austin Mettler saying Tim Stützle plus 180 not to record a point tonight on a book. Would that be something that might be intriguing to you guys?
Real quick, those 2 Senators players you mentioned, where would they be in the Blackhawks roster? Second line?
Yes. Probably. Yeah, I am seeing this plus 180 out here, but would that be something for like Tim Stützle? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, Carolina is obviously like Carolina's like a team where they're not going to give up a lot, right? Like how much is Ottawa going to be able to generate? Carolina plays such a suffocating game, but like Stutz is also a dynamic player. So,
yeah,
it's, I mean, if they're going to, find a breakthrough in this game, it's probably going to come from that top line. But again, Carolina at home here can play the matchups a little bit more. Pretty suffocating team. Like I don't hate the look. It's not something that was necessarily on my radar, but I think that's a decent look.
Yeah, in general, I don't necessarily bet too many props, but I certainly like not to record a point as a big dog versus a team that, like you said, suffocates you like Carolina does at a big number like plus 180. Obviously, a lot of ice time he'll be on every power play, but at plus 180, I certainly don't hate that play.
All right, next game. The game everyone came here to hear us talk about. The Toronto Maple Leafs playing host to the Montreal Canadiens here tonight in the season opener. We're currently seeing Toronto at minus 282 on Pinnacle, minus 275, best price available, 249 on the Montreal Canadiens. And you're seeing this total sitting at 6.5. Mr. Montreal, what are your thoughts on the Canadiens here tonight in the season opener against the Maple Leafs?
Well, the Habs are underrated, very, very strong cup contender this year. Obviously, it's kind of the Leafs are a much, much better team. But it's pretty tough to back them as big favorites like this. We've seen so often, throughout their seasons that in these spots, they kind of struggle a little bit more. Montreal just like has a tendency to play them tough, whether it's like the rivalry aspect or whatever. Montreal gets the better of them more often than they probably should. So, I'm not really betting anything sidewise here. I do kind of like the over, and I think maybe for a half unit, I could lock in an overplay. The minus 120 at FanDuel looks good to me, or MGM seems pretty widely available. I think that Defensively, Montreal has a ways to go. They're a very young group on the back end, and there's, with that there's going to be a lot of growing pains. You're talking about guys like Gooley, guys like Jack Jordan Harris, who I like, but again, maybe not necessarily right now. Like, they're going to need a little bit more time. Matheson and Savard is your top pair. Like, I really like Matheson, but Savard is, can be a bit of an anchor. He's a good penalty killer, but that's about it. And I think Montreal offensively is a little bit underrated. They were missing a ton of guys last year. If you go, top to bottom through their roster, the injuries just kind of like decimated them. They were not, bad early in the season last year. They were, offense was clicking. The team was overall doing well. They were playing, like 500 hockey for a decent, stretch until injury started to really derail them. And I think they're going to get a lot of goals. Like, something that like models can't really factor in or don't factor in is the fact that, like, Suzuki isn't considered like a good offensive player, an elite offensive player, guys like that. But like, Suzuki was by all means a pretty elite offensive player through the first like 3 months of last season. Then his line mates start going down. Everyone starts going down. There were stretches in the second half of the year where he's playing with like Jesse Ilonen and Joel Armia or Raphael Harvey-Pinard. I mean, you're not going to like play, you're not going to produce against teams' best players when you're playing with, relative dog shit on your wings. So, I mean, I think stuff like that kind of has them a little bit undervalued offensively. I don't think the Leafs are the strongest defensive team. I think depth-wise, Montreal is actually decent. Maybe they can win some of those matchups with the third and fourth lines. So, yeah, I think that we can see some goals here, and I think that over 6.5 is worth a bit of a smaller play.
All right. Matt, any thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with a lot of what you said. I definitely lean to the over of anything. We'll get to it a little bit, but I do like Montreal a little bit here for a lot of the reasons that you touched on. I do think that the Canadiens actually will be not make the playoffs or anything, but I think they'll be a little bit better than what's expected this year. Obviously, they're kind of expected to be one of the worst 3 teams in the league at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are going to score a decent amount of goals this year. The issue is for sure going to be keeping the puck out of their net. But again, like you said, they always seem to play Toronto tough. Toronto's got to work some new guys into their lineup and like we saw last night with Carlson, like that stuff takes time. It just doesn't happen right away. So they're obviously trying to work in Domi. They're trying to work in Bertuzzi. There'll be some others around there throughout the year. But like tonight, I played the Canadiens actually on the puck line, plus 1.5 and plus 100. I think that this game does stay pretty close. For what it's worth, and we could put a lot or a little stock into this, they actually played last week with most of their full lineups, and it was a very close game, but the Canadiens actually won it overtime. Obviously, preseason, like I get all that, but it was both teams pretty much A rosters on both sides. But yeah, I like the Canadiens plus a goal and a half tonight.
All right, so we'll lock that in. You want to put a half unit, full unit on this here?
I went full unit on 1.5 plus 100.
All right, there you go. So second official play. We got both in this game here tonight, so we'll lock those in. And again, if you do want to track the plays that we give out on the show throughout the course of the season, see how they do, you can find that over in the BetStamp app as Edgework HQ. So make sure to go over there, give it a follow. You can see our record from last season, RRY, COV, how everything goes throughout the year. So make sure to go over, download the BetStamp app today, and check us out in the Find Better section as Edgework HQ. But 2 official picks locked in here tonight. Now, moving on to the third game of tonight, Chicago Blackhawks coming in on a back-to-back here. Interesting scheduling to just start their season off running through that. But you go from Pittsburgh, face off against the Boston Bruins here tonight. Now, Boston, obviously a team that we've kind of seen people predicting some regression from. Obviously, that you don't think they're going to have the season that they did last year. But Matt, if you're going to look to this game here tonight, you see an opportunity to maybe get behind the Bruins, facing off against Chicago on the back-to-back. Is this just maybe a stay away, or maybe are you looking towards a total in this game?
So at the side, I'm staying away. I do think I'm going to be fading the Bruins a lot early on. It seems to me like they're still being priced as one of the 6 to 8 best teams in the league. Personally, I don't believe they are that. I think I'm lower on them just with everything they've lost. I obviously expect a little bit of regression from Ullmark this year. Even if he's still very good, he's not going to do what he did last year. Pastrnak, obviously elite. He just scored 60. It's hard to be better than he was last year. You lose one of the best two-way centers of all time in Bergeron. You lose Krejci. Obviously, you lose the playoff additions in Bertuzzi and Orlov. I actually have the Bruins like struggling to make a wild card spot this year personally. I've bet them to miss the playoffs at plus 250, plus 300, numbers like that. That said, I anticipate playing a lot of Bruins unders this year, especially early on. I can't really get there tonight with a team like Chicago that I think is, again, just very capable of folding defensively for reasons like you touched on earlier. They got a lot of young players on the back end. But the Bruins returned 5 of their top 6 defensive from last year. They bring back Ullmark, who's still going to be very good. They obviously lose a little bit of firepower up front. So I think it's a team that, generally speaking, I'd like to play a lot of unders on. I just can't get there tonight. At 6, it looks like under is about plus 100. I was frankly hoping for either a little bit better or maybe a 6.5 given Chicago. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm going to look for a lot of Bruins unders.
Yeah, fair enough. Moretto, any thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, I got nothing. I mean, it's pretty hard to make a case for the Blackhawks here on a back-to-back, especially with travel this early in the season. I mean, if you're looking towards like some player prop stuff, I think that a guy who could potentially be undervalued, I'm not sure. I mean, we need to see some more lines. I don't really have, lines for this stuff in front of us yet, but I do see a plus 600 on Bet99 for JVR over 0.5 power play points. So basically to record a power play point. If you want to back JVR in any of these markets, like a power play point or just a point in general, we don't have any points odds yet to record a point yet. Even a goal market, I kind of don't mind taking some JVR stuff tonight. The fact that he's on that first line with Pastrnak is, obviously he's just going to be riding that to some success this year in the stats column, and he's playing for his power play unit. He's just going to be in front of the net, cleaning things up. He's going to be a bumper guy. I mean, he's going to be involved in a lot of stuff for this team offensively. And whether he should or not, whether that's a good thing for the Bruins or not, doesn't really matter. It's a good thing for us early in the season in the prop market if he's not kind of priced properly. So I don't mind some JVR stuff here.
All right. Yeah, makes sense. All right, so take a look around, see what prices you can get, and you can do that by shopping with the BetStamp app. Now, moving on to the next game here tonight. Winnipeg Jets, Calgary Flames. Winnipeg goes out and signs Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck, and what I thought was kind of surprising, they do it both at the exact same time, same contracts, same terms, same AAV, all of that. It was one of those teams that I was interested to watch throughout the course of this season because I just kept having this feeling that Mark Scheifele was not going to re-sign there, and they were going to have to figure out what they wanted to do with him as it went along. But locking both of those guys in before you even puck drops on day one kind of changes the outlook there and kind of even makes it just a different feel about how they're going to approach this season. Now, going into this one against the Calgary team, you're kind of looking at two teams in a spot where Calgary underperformed last year, at least in terms of not making the playoffs. Huberdeau drops off by 60 points. Markstrom below a 900 save percentage. It just wasn't where they needed to be at all the way through. If you're going to look at this game here tonight, opening the season off, you're currently sitting Winnipeg plus 114 on the road at Calgary minus 126. Matt, is there any way that you might want to get involved in this one? I know you're high on Winnipeg coming into the season.
Yeah, especially after those two signings. They were a very large question mark for me this entire summer, just kind of on what's project. I frankly loved the trade they made with the Kings. I thought they got a lot of good pieces back there for a player that just did not want to be there at all. I can't get there at the price tonight. I was really trying to get to Winnipeg. I was ideally looking for 125, maybe 130. I know the market was very high on the Flames last year. Obviously, Markstrom had a down year for all those reasons you mentioned. I think that's kind of priced back into this year. I do anticipate getting on the Jets a decent amount early, but at this number, I can't quite get there. But I'm definitely closer to the Jets than the Flames. It looks like the price may actually be ticking up a little bit. If this hits plus 125, I think I'll play Winnipeg for a half unit, but at plus 115, I'm not necessarily interested. Longer term, I did bet Rick Bowness, who coaches the Jets, not the Stars. Reminder to someone in here. To win the Jack Adams this year, I think 35-1. Sorry, I had to get that shot in. But no, look, I think this is a really good team. I think for the last, 5-6 years for the Jets, their issue has been depth just about every year. They've had top-end offensive players, Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor, Morrissey, Dubois, you kind of name it. But I think after trading Dubois over, their depth looks pretty solid. And obviously you kind of have Hellebuck in net. Like now there's no worry about him going anywhere. You bring in Scheifele back, like he's not going anywhere. So I do like this team's outlook long term, but no, I'm not on them tonight.
Do you have any concerns with maybe the culture or attitude of the Winnipeg Jets? It kind of seemed like at least over the last 2 seasons, it became pretty public that was something that they struggled with, whether it was just the build of the locker room or the attitude of the guys that were in there. Now, obviously, Pierre-Luc Dubois out the door. He was a guy who, as you mentioned, really clearly did not want to be there. But does removing him from the situation alleviate things? Like, does that make you feel a lot better about this team going forward?
I think just with the amount of turnover, it definitely helps, right? Like, I'm not going to say that Blake Wheeler's bad in the locker room or anything. Like, I have no idea.
No.
Obviously, he's with the Rangers. I hope he's great. Like, by all accounts, he's great in the locker room. But I think just kind of changing that group a little bit. Obviously, they brought in, I think, 3 new players from the Kings. They get Dubois out the door, who seemed to be like the big issue there. It's hard to know. I mean, I think we kind of have to see it play out. And I see you shaking your head. I know you're a big PLD guy. But I don't know. I think you just kind of have to see it play out. And maybe it is an issue with Bonus and he's got to go too. But I'm not there quite yet. I just kind of want to see how this group meshes with some new faces in there this year.
Yeah, I know a lot of really sharp people are high on Winnipeg this year. And I maybe like makes me feel stupid because I'm not. I don't think like the players don't forget what happened at the end of last year. And I know Wheeler's gone and I know Dubois is gone, but like a lot of these guys were still in that room. And a lot of these guys were there when Bonus threw him under the bus. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot more that went into that series too. Like Bonus, like the way Bonus handled things after the fact, what I thought was terrible because like, look at the injuries they had. I mean, Ehlers didn't play, Morrissey didn't play. That team was really banged up. They battled through a lot. And the fact that they were almost up 2-0 in that series when, they lost in double overtime in game 2. I mean, they battled through a lot of adversity to be competitive in that series. And obviously things went off the rails towards the end, but like, I don't know, those comments, like, it's not just like, okay, new season, clean slate, like all is forgotten, all is well. I still think that resonates with the players. I don't know, maybe there isn't going to be an issue in the locker room, but like, I'm just not as high on this Jets team overall in general. And I think the Flames actually have, some good depth and are pretty much being a little bit undervalued here. I'm not going to bet them tonight. Like that -120 that's available at Betway is not bad. I would play that, but we won't lock it in because it's definitely not a widely available number at all. But so I mean, if you can get that -120, that's good for me. But I just think that this is an undervalued team. Like I'm excited to see Matt Coronado. I think Adam Ruzicka is a good player. Like they have some decent depth guys that are kind of being a little bit flying under the radar here, I think. And I'm kind of excited to see what this team can do under Huska. I think that, I think they're going to be more exciting. I think maybe they had the issues in the room that Winnipeg kind of has, but they've actually cleaned them out by getting rid of Sutter. And, I think this is just going to be a more energized group this year where, they're happy to come to the rink every day. And that goes a long way. I mean, that goes a long way. First night at home. I don't mind the Stars here. I'm not quite there at what's widely available, but like, I do think, the Flames. I do think the Flames are a decent look here. Stars are on my mind, man. The whole Bonus thing just rattled the hell out of me.
Matt, you just came in and threw a wrench in it.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, we're not going to lock anything in there for that game then. But I do see a question in the chat, or someone has mentioned Mass here saying the account has the picks hidden. Yes, we have the picks hidden. They go live once the games have come to a conclusion, and then you can see all the history of the picks. The entire point of that is so that people watch the show for the picks and not just go and follow us on Betstamp and just get notified every time something gets locked in. Because if you would have seen last season, you would see that we had a very successful year, up 21 units at 2.3% ROI over a large sample size. So basically, if you just turned on notifications last year and tailed us, you were going to have a pretty successful year. And so we want people to watch the show and come here to follow us with Edgework. So the picks are hidden, but you can get to them at the end of the show every day. We will recap every pick that's being given out as well. You can see that our entire history of everything throughout the course of the season. So don't worry about that. It will all be there. Now, 2 more games remaining here tonight. The Edmonton Oilers on the road against the Vancouver Canucks. Moretto, go to you first. Minus 158 on the Oilers, plus 142 currently sitting there for the Vancouver Canucks. The total sitting at 7 right now. Is any side or total interesting you at all?
No, I think this is I'm closer to the Canucks for sure than I am to Edmonton. I almost want to just bet the Canucks in honor of So Money here today and just, really get him fired up. But I think I would want like plus 155-ish to kind of get in on Vancouver. And I don't think we're going to get that unless some significant Edmonton money comes in, which it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, I got nothing at all here. The over is pushing towards like heavily juiced 6.5. There's, 7s out there, plus money, super high total. Not a game I care to bet the under in. Not a game I care to bet the over in at this number either. So like, I really have no interest in the total. Don't think I'll get there on the side. A game that I'll probably just want to sit back and watch the first period of before falling asleep on the couch at about 10:45.
This will be while Matt and I are sending messages back.
Yeah, you guys are hitting your prime at that time, and I'll be fast asleep.
Yeah. Matt, any thoughts on this Oilers Canucks game?
Yeah, I have nothing. I'm on the same side. I tend to lean Vancouver. I don't want to play it like at all. We learned in the preseason, fading McDavid is just a miserable existence, even if he has nobody else on. Even if he's the only NHL player on the entire roster, it's miserable. No, just generally speaking, I know I'm low on the Canucks this year, but I got nothing here.
Connor Brown, I don't mind some Connor Brown stuff.
I'll pull it up. We can take a look here at some Connor Brown stuff.
I didn't see any point stuff. That's why I didn't really bring it up. But if you're looking for some prop stuff, I wouldn't mind playing some Connor Brown. Just hate that he's not on the first power play unit, but he's just going to get fed by McDavid all year. This guy's scoring 30 goals. This guy's 100% scoring 30 goals this year. You can clip that when he scores 12 in April, but like he's scoring 30 goals this year.
Well, also insight here saying McDavid over 3.5 shots on goal, minus 118. Pull it up. That's not widely available, so not something at all we would track here, but it is available. And I think if you have access to that, that's something worthwhile going out and venturing into the McDavid over 3.5, minus 118. But
it's at the Candy books.
Yes.
So while we're on the subject of the Canucks, what was this Connor Garland news that came out yesterday? Did you guys see the thing about like how they said he could go request his own trade?
Yeah, he can shop around for a trade. Honestly, like that would be for a team that has cap space and is like looking to kind of tank to add that on, to add Garland and add a pick. That's not a bad move for something. I would love to see the Habs, but Habs have too many forwards. They don't necessarily have the cap space, but like, it makes sense for like kind of a rebuilding team to like go grab a guy like that who I think is still productive player, can be a very productive player. Obviously the contract's not great, but it's not horrible either. Like it's not an anchor contract. It's just they can't really afford it. I would love to go add Garland. I think a number of teams would be really smart to do that.
Yeah. Connor Hurdle here saying Connor Brown anytime goal plus 310. Moretto, would you play it at that number?
Yeah, why not? It should be a high scoring game. There'll be chances. Let's have some fun. A small little bet, a little fun bet for the night.
All right. Final game of the night that we'll get to here. The Colorado Avalanche going to take on the LA Kings in LA here. Colorado currently sitting minus 120. We got the LA Kings plus 109. Best price on Colorado is minus 115 at DraftKings there. The total sitting at 6. What are we kind of expecting out of this new look LA Kings team here, Matt, with Pierre-Luc Dubois inserted into this lineup?
I think after the last 2 years, seeing them lose in very similar ways to kind of the Oilers, it's very clear they had to upgrade kind of their top end skill. Obviously, they went and did that. They were always kind of a deep team. They traded a little bit of that to get him. I have no idea what to expect out of the Kings this year. I think, generally speaking, everyone's very high on them. I think I'm a little lower on them just with some of the unknowns, but they're still going to be a very good team. They're probably still going to make the playoffs. Just again, tonight, working in a big piece like this, I want no part of the game. I want to sit back and watch it. I want to see how he looks in a place that, frankly, it looks like he loves and is very happy in. So,
well, it would be hard not to love living in LA, I think.
it's hard not to love living in LA and playing for like a Stanley Cup contender. So if this one doesn't
Yeah.
work, like I don't think we can blame the situations anymore. But no, by all accounts, like look, he's very talented. I think there's definitely a chance that he just busts off and has 100 points this year. But I kind of want to sit back for a little bit and see how this team they start to look with him this year. Definitely closer to the Kings tonight, but I have no play on this.
Yeah, I'm close to the Kings too, but not quite there. And I also hate the fact that Penny's offering me a much better number on the Kings than anywhere else in market. That's always a little bit of a concerning thing to see when you like a side that Penny disagrees with. So yeah, I don't actually have anything here. I would probably want to get like a 115-ish, 120-ish on the Kings, and I'd be pretty happy to bet that. But a little tidbit for people though, a guy that I know runs a rink by my house here in Ontario, and Landeskog is there every day skating, and it sounds like Landeskog, is very much planning on playing in the playoffs. This might be a Kucherov situation where it sounds like the plan would be to bring him back in April. So I don't think that's something that's a guarantee. I don't think that's something that's necessarily like widely known yet either. But yeah, could be an interesting thing if you're betting futures. At one point that maybe the Avs are going to get a lot stronger come April.
You got the Kanishi moles on the ground.
Got the Kanishi moles running around here. Yeah, my moles are a little bit better than his moles, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, that will do it for the games here today. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Matt, congratulations. You made it through your first Edgework live show. And
with the Habs bet too. I love it.
with the Habs bet,
I appreciate it.
With the Habs, and only one Dilling Zamboni ice joke in the chat. So we're off to a pretty good start there.
Mike Vivian, I respect that. Flying high after that Oklahoma win this week.
Yeah, Oklahoma every week if you follow along with Hit the Books. But thank you to everyone who tuned in here today. Greatly appreciate it. Matt, Moretto, thank you guys for taking the time to do this. For everyone else, we'll see you guys back here tomorrow morning here on the Edgework channel, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications on this channel so you don't miss it when we go live. But enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy your bets. Good luck on those. Let's have a day.
Go ahead.